President Biden marking Transgender Day of Visibility. He announced a slew of new measures aimed at supporting trans Americans and attacked GOP lawmakers proposing what he describes as anti-transgender legislation. That includes Florida's parental rights bill. Watch.
But we know it's hard when there are those out there who don't see you and don't respect you. For example, the onslaught of anti-transgender state laws attacking you and your families is simply wrong. This administration is standing up for you against all these hateful bills.
You know, Emily, the fact that there are rational Americans in the country who say we don't want kindergartners through third grade learning about gender identity, sexuality when they are in kindergarten, does that mean, as the president just described them, that they do not respect trans individuals, that they don't see trans individuals? I don't think the two are mutually exclusive.
I agree with you, but unfortunately our president doesn't, Kaylee. Our president sees everything through the lens of a binary choice of black or white, good and evil, and everything stemming out of a thoughtful protection of parental rights, a thoughtful discourse, freedoms and liberties, and the choice to rear your child as you see fit, to present choices and education in the way that you know is best for you and your family, is somehow seen as poisonous to the left, and it's also seen as anti-gay. Now, the problem with this narrative is that people on the left continue to parrot it and buy it. So it's amplified in the mainstream media. It's amplified on the West Coast, where I'm from, where people simply parrot the fact that, oh, this GOP, the anti-gay legislature. But when you read the bill, when you read that it preserves parental rights and choice, when you read that it protects the children's ability to simply be children, then that is why 68% of those who have read the bill support it. And we are seeing that favor reflected in the polls of those that are proponents of that Florida bill in particular, that this administration, as they continue to do, is monitoring to ensure there are no civil rights violations, in keeping with, again, that false narrative that they're peddling about this binary good and evil choice.
Juan, we're talking about kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. These are very young children who I believe should be taught that they are loved and respected and unique. But there's no place in the classroom at that age for learning about these very complex concepts. Do you think this is a winning message for Democrats going into the midterms?
No, I don't think there's any politician in America who thinks that standing up for transgender rights is going to boost their approval, Kaylee. I think Joe Biden knows that. It's not the case for a Republican or Democrat. And we've seen some Republican governors try to push back on this. And, you know, everybody knows politically this isn't going to work. But I must tell you, it feels to me a little bit like, you know, Back to the Future. Because 20 years ago, we were having similar conversations about people who were standing up for gay rights and the whole idea of gay marriage. And now today, you know, gay marriage is legal. Most Americans support gay rights and gay marriage. And now the question is, what can you properly say, this is how I feel in terms of my sexual identity, without fear of discrimination? Are you a protected class, like people in terms of gender, race, national origin? You know, we got Shannon here to talk about, you know, the law. And so far, transgender people are not protected. But I would think that right now we are coming to terms, and this is a cultural transition point. And to your question, no, I don't think any politician thinks it's going to boost his standing, left or right. But I will give Biden credit for being, you know, empathetic for people who are going through difficult times. The Utah governor said some of these transgender youth have very high suicide rates.
Can I jump in?
I think a lot is being... Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
I have to. First of all, I just want to say that I don't think that, first of all, comparing gays to transgender should be any different. They should be protected. And I don't believe that politicians should be running for office and afraid to not give this protection to this community of transgender, you know, where there is a huge suicide rate. The suicide rate amongst transgender youth is horrible, and they need that protection from hate crimes, from discrimination. And so I do believe that there should be protection. Do I believe that this, you know, law that is giving the parents the right to choose in Florida is anti-trans? No. I believe that parents should have the right to tell their children, yeah, you know, go to school. You're not going to have any worries as to learning something that's inappropriate. I wouldn't want my 5-year-old to learn about trans and gay, but eventually, yeah, I'm going to teach my children about it, but that's on my terms, not a 5-year-old. But as far as protection for gays, I think if in transgender, I believe they should be one and the same. I mean, I do not believe that one is entitled to protection while the other isn't, because trans are discriminated against much more than gays. They actually need more protection, I would say.
Yeah, Shannon, you know, I think a lot's being conflated. Look, you can love an individual no matter what choices they make in life, love everyone in this country. Every group should be protected by the law. All of that to be said, this is an argument about education, about parents' rights in education, about what happened in Virginia, where you had a Democrat candidate say parents have no role in education. It's the CRT curriculum. It's the notion that parents don't get to see what their children are learning. And it's now this notion that it's somehow wrong to say, I don't want my kids being taught about sexuality from a teacher. I, as a parent, want to teach my child how to think on those issues and maybe shield them from those issues until maybe, I don't know, middle school, high school.
Yeah, and I love that Julie makes this beautiful distinction. Any sane person, every one of us on this screen, and all good people that we know want people to be protected, to feel safe, not to be discriminated against. But that is separate and above, different from this law in Florida. And so, Julie, perfect distinction. I think that that is very important for people to understand. And it's not fair when people mischaracterize what the law is, what it isn't, because then we can't have productive conversations. Laura Ingraham had a guy on last night who is an employee at Disney. And he said there's sort of a silent majority there that's really afraid to speak out about the political, the wokeness, all that's happening there, because they feel like if they hold traditional values or religious beliefs, whatever their faith background is, on things like marriage, that they cannot speak freely. So I think we want to make sure that we can have conversations that are constructive, that protect people. And, you know, in my faith tradition and all of the ones that I know about on this planet, it is about respecting other people, caring for them, and seeing them as created in God's image. So with that as a starting point, I would hope we can have a rational conversation that doesn't mischaracterize what these different laws do and don't do.
Kaylee, may I also add that, respectfully, Juan, I feel like what we heard was that sort of false equivalency, again, that's sort of narrated by the left, to equate anti-gay legislation of the past, a historically difficult and massively troubling chapter in our history coming out of Anita Bryant and proponents of the like, with this legislation, which, as my colleagues have articulated, is simply to protect parental choice in the realm of education for very young children. And unfortunately, I think that furthers that false notion that those that are for this bill are for parental choice and freedom over their young children, that somehow means that it is anti-trans. We are all for trans protection. We are also all for parental choice.
Yeah, that's exactly
well, I'm
right.
glad
Julie,
to hear
one
that.
ancillary
I
point.
agree with.
Go ahead, Juan. You can respond.
I was just saying, I agree, Emily. I think we're all for protection. I'm so glad to hear everyone here in agreement on that across all political lines. I do think that as a culture, as an American culture, we are struggling with this transgender issue. I, for example, have real issues with transgender girls competing with, you know, girls in sports. It's a difficult one. So I think that's the struggle, and that's what I'm talking about. It's very similar to the struggle we had with gay rights. Remember, Obama said he evolved on it, and that's a guy coming from the left.
Right. And similar to the equivalency of Biden, Jim Crow, and the Georgia voting laws, we're seeing that same unfortunate twisting of the truth. Because, Juan, as you point out, we all feel the same way, but unfortunately, coming out of this administration, it's a very dark painting of the GOP.
It is, and what they've managed to do is skyrocket GOP voter registration. GOP now leads by about 100,000 votes in the state of Florida.